Good afternoon, ladies, gents and Pikachus, and welcome back to another analysis and breakdown of the Quran of the Muslims. Yes, we'll be breaking it down verse by verse once again into factual, logical statements in English so we can understand who or what is Allah, what does he mean by the contents of this book, and more importantly for us, how does that affect us as non-believers in the world today. So before I start, as I always do, I'm going to tell you now, if you doubt my factual accuracy or have anything to say about the claims I'm going to make, please first buy and translate this Arabic Quran, not an English one, it's got to be an Arabic one. And once you've done that, you'll recognise every single word I'm about to say now or have previously said is 100% true of the words of Allah and what Muslims believe today. So, if you watched the last episode, you'll remember that we went through the Battle of Badr, which is a battle where Muhammad took some troops from Islam and ransacked another culture and killed all the natives, took over the city. Although that wasn't described in the verses, that's what history says actually happened, so we're going to go by that. So he's describing the victories that Muslims will have with Allah at that back, and this time we're going to be going through how they're going to deal with defeat, and why it actually equals a victory if they see defeat, because Allah knows it's all in his plan and he writes everyone's path. So with that in mind, let's get started. 124. Allah said before, "If ye doubt your victory, you should remain faithful in Allah. Say he, is it not enough that I sent down 3,000 angels in order to back your victory?" End quote, end of verse. So what he's saying here, if we break this down, in the past, there's been a battle. It looked like the Muslims might lose. This might actually be talking about Badr, but it doesn't say, so I can't add that. In the past, there was a battle. It looked like the Muslims were going to lose. Then, at the very last minute, Allah sent 3,000 angels down, and then they managed to win the battle with the help of the 3,000 angels. So Allah is saying here, if you doubt your victory, O Muslims, and you start losing, and most of your guys are dead, don't run away or give up. Fight till that last man, because even if you've only got one guy left, Allah will send you 3,000 angels and they'll come to your aid and they'll win the battle for you. That's what this means. Only, if you're so wise and powerful, Allah, seems to me that you could just send the angels. You know, and not risk the lives of your Muslims. Since they're doubting their victory, there's clearly not enough of them to have a conclusive victory, as you previously promised them. So I think this is Allah's way of saying, stop running away, please, Muslims, because I know there's not enough of you, and the Christians and Jews have better weapons than you, and there's more of them. But anyway, if you don't run away, I'll send you 3,000 angels, and presumably one angel is worth more than one man, so the angels will ensure your victory no matter how many people you face. That's what this means. But I am going to have a problem with the fact that he can't just send the angels alone, because if he was wise and powerful and he cared about the lives of his Muslims, the Muslims would be at home relaxing and not having to fight his wars, and his angels would just go and do the job. But anyway, on to the next one. 125. He saith, Ye, if you remain firm, and war against thine enemies, even if they rush you in furious rage, your Lord will send you down another 5,000 angels in clear sight. End of verse. So, what I think is happening here, that his Muslims are definitely on the end of a defeat, or it's looking like they're going to be on the end of a nasty defeat here, and a lot of them are getting killed. So, in the Battle of Badr, although it's recorded as a great victory, a huge rout, judging by this, if this is the record of it, maybe what actually happened is they were near to losing, and then in order to make it sound better, they added that Allah won the battle by giving them lots of angels. That's where I think this 3,000 number comes from. And then in this verse, he saith, if you remain firm and war against thine enemies, as if you stop running away. So both the verses suggest that these Muslims are fleeing and they're not being courageous and brave in the spirit of Allah. You know, they're not doing what they're told, effectively. So Allah's having to make excuses for them and to them, so in future they stop running away. That's expressly how it looks to me. So he says, if you remain firm and war against thine enemies, even if they rush you in furious rage, which, by the way, is what you would do if you are winning a battle. If your rank is beating the ranks of the enemy and their numbers are depleted, then you will encircle them and rush forward to try and kill off the last of them to end the battle. So I think that's what he's saying here. Even if they rush you in furious rage and they're winning, your Lord will send you down another 5,000 clear-sighted angels. So, in your own words, Allah, you were losing, your guys were losing, you sent them down 3,000 angels, which you'd think would be enough to actually win any battle, but they're still losing in the next verse. So you're telling them, remain firm, even though you've got 3,000 angels and you're still not able to win, we'll send you 5,000 angels. Angels costing you a lot of money, Allah. Why didn't you just send 8,000 angels and not send any of your humans who will be killed, who are getting killed? It seems to me like this 3,000 angels thing was to encourage the Muslims to go to the battle, because obviously talking about a past event which isn't described in here is speculating. So Allah speculates that's how this past battle was won, O Muslims, with the 3,000 angels. So you'll get those again if you go, even though it doesn't actually say that. Now we're talking about a battle that's happening, and they're losing it with the 3,000 angels. So he's having to send another 5,000. So I think if we break this down, Allah is definitely saying here, Muslims, when you're in a battle and you're losing, you're going to need the help of these 8,000 angels in order that you don't lose, but Allah will definitely give you them as long as you back him, and you kill his enemies for him. Even though it's really poorly written, I absolutely think that's what it means. So I have to admit the wording of the Arabic is very patchy. It's very difficult to read. Even though you can translate it easily enough, trying to make sense of the broken sentences and the lack of good grammar is very difficult. But it actually does seem like they were losing a battle, Allah gave them 3,000 angels, then they started doing better but they were still losing it, and Allah sent another 5,000 angels so that they could win. So in order to beat their enemies, they needed 8,000 angels of help, and only then would they win. That's what this means. 126. All those angels that I sent to thee were another holy sign, and 'tis a message to encourage your swords. Allah gives his assurance to your hearts to kill the non-believers where they stand. For without it none shall see victory, none shall live except for those in Allah's guidance and who exalt and obey only him. End of verse. Now, bearing in mind what we thought about the last verse, i.e. he needed to have 3,000 angels, that didn't do enough, then 5,000 angels, and only then did they manage to win the fight. All those angels are a holy sign. That's what Allah's now saying. The fact that those angels turned up at all is a holy sign to prove that Allah's divinity is true, and the Quran of the Muslims is true, and you should win all your battles. And that happening, the holy sign of the angels, is a message to encourage your swords. So Allah is saying, because that happened in the past, and I'm telling you it's going to happen in future, anytime you see non-believers, you should go and kill them, even if there's more of them and they have better weapons than you, because the presumption is he's going to send another 8,000 angels, and then you will definitely win. And the important bit, Allah gives his assurance to your hearts to kill the non-believers. Now that sounds like Allah's given his assurance that you're going to win. That's not what he's saying. He's saying he's going to give the assurance to your heart that you should kill the non-believers. Whether you die at the end of it, whether you win the battle or not, that's not what Allah's given the assurance of. In defeat, with the angels there to make sure you don't die, he's saying you should definitely kill the non-believers, not you should definitely win the battle. And that's what this means. And then he says, for without his help, none shall see victory. So, what Allah is saying here, O Muslims, is if you don't have his angels, you will definitely lose. There's no other way you could interpret this. I'll read it again. Talking about the angels, he said he's going to send 8,000. And then in the verse 126, he says, for without it, none shall see victory. Without his angels, none shall see victory. So, if you're in battle and you don't get these angels, you will lose. That's what Allah is telling you. You need his angels to win your battles, Muslims. That's what this says. And then he goes on, none shall live except from those in Allah's guidance and who exalt and obey only him. So despite the fact that his angels are required to win any battle, in battles between other types of non-believers, there's a winner and there's a loser. And they're not mentioned here. Presumably they're not having Allah's angels appear because he clearly hasn't got that many of them. If he's sending 3,000 when he's got 8,000, and then he's only sending the other 5,000 after they start losing and they've lost loads of guys, clearly angels are in short supply. So I don't see him sending them to other people's battles that don't even involve Muslims. And then that's how that's how I understand this. None shall live except those in Allah's guidance and who exalt and obey him. He's saying that to make up for the fact that he said none shall see victory without his angels, even though other people across the world are having battles, winners and losers, and they don't have Allah's angels. So then he has to add this last bit to say, actually, those guys who won their battle, they actually do secretly worship Allah. And even though they're not admitting to it, they're exalting and obeying only him. Even when it's warring tribes who both hate Muslims and don't worship Allah. Anyway, nothing to see here. This is another one of Allah's many mistakes, where he's tried to clean it up with that last line, but then he's just dropped himself in it by creating a what's it called? A fallacy, a logical fallacy. None shall live except in Allah's guidance, who exalt and obey him, apart from all the guys across the world who have never even heard of him, and as soon as they hear of him, want him dead. Those guys winning their battles is apparently not something that this line considers. But who am I to argue? Allah knows and sees all. Allah is the Lord of power. Allah knows and sees all things. So what the hell do I know, apart from history? Let's carry on. 128. Only Allah decides when and where a man will see victory. See, he does it again. He's just corrected the last one because he thought, hang on a minute, other people are going to get victories that aren't Muslim. So he had to add that last bit. But he immediately forgets and says, only Allah decide. Oh, I suppose he can decide on a victory without sending his angels. But then why would he need the angels with his Muslims? So the angels are just for show then. So he decides whether someone's going to win a victory or not. But even if his angels don't show up, that decision stands. It makes no sense. But anyway, that's what it says. If you don't believe me, buy it, translate it yourself. Anyway, only Allah decides when and where a man will see victory. He will bring them forward with victory only to punish and see them killed. For indeed they are evil. End of verse. So what he's doing here, if we break it down, he is definitely trying to explain away his previous mistake where he claimed that only Allah worshippers are going to see victory. The only way they're going to see victory is if he decides on it. And if he decides on it, he'll send 8,000 angels, 3,000, then 5,000. But then he says other people are going to get victory without the angels when he's deciding on. And that's the reason why now, in this absolute pig's ear of a verse, he's saying only Allah decides when and where a man will see victory. So if they see victory and it wasn't his decision and he didn't send his angels, he's only bringing them forward with victory so that he can punish them and kill them later. You see, he's too smart for us. It's his little plan. Secret agent Allah is planting the seed in someone's mind that the victory was actually them by not turning up and not sending his angels, so he can turn up and punish them later when they're overconfident. That's what he's doing. Oh, this guy is so incredibly clever, isn't he? Only to punish them and see them killed after, for indeed they are evil. So he's definitely saying here, even though they've won their victories, they're bad. Even though he doesn't like them, he's decided that they should win without the help of his angels, which is more than we can say for his Muslims. So I think the summary of those 5 verses that we've gone through is Allah is the kind of guy who wants his guys to always win, but is well aware that most of the time they're going to lose. So to motivate them to fight down to the last man and not run away, he's going to promise them angels. But then to explain away the battles of others where his angels don't exist, he says, I let them win anyway, so that I can punish them later. You following? Look, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but this is what it says. I can't change what it says, otherwise I wouldn't be reading it accurately. And that is the whole point of this series, is to read it verse by verse and get it accurately. So I think the less said about those verses, the better. Let's just move along. 129. His mystery is above your simplicity. Ah, now we understand. So he knows he's screwed up there. He knows that this makes no sense, and the way that he's describing how victory and defeat works on the battlefield is way just over people's head. It's not going to make any sense to Muslims or non-believers alike. And so, because he knows they're going to be confused, and this is going to lead to doubts and questions which he doesn't want, because you've got to be worshipping him enough, so if you've got doubts and questions, you're not doing that, he's going to give you an excuse to tell the non-believers when they laugh in your face at his ridiculous battle plan. And that excuse is this. His mystery is above your simplicity. His method is far above your understanding. For he owns all in the heaven and upon the earth. He rewards who he will reward, and punishes whom he does. And if ye worship him, Allah is oft forgiving of your sinful lives. For Muslims, he is the most merciful. End of verse. So if we break that down, his mystery being above your simplicity is saying, you just don't get it. Allah's the smart one. Secret Agent Allah is over there winning and losing battles for people he doesn't know about yet, who aren't Muslims without his angels. For he owns heaven and earth. So of course he's going to do that. They're on his patch. They're in his back garden. Of course he's going to make their battles win and lose and not send his... He doesn't need to send his angels. He's too clever. Then he says, he rewards those who he will and punishes those who he does. And if you worship him, he's oft forgiving of your sinful lives. So the sin he's offering to forgive here is the sin of you a minute ago having questions and doubting his ridiculous battle plans, which you are going to do if you're a logical guy. And look, even though I don't like the way that that Muslims treat me, I'm not suggesting that they're not all stupid. Some of them are extremely clever. So while he's reading this, they're going to be sat there thinking, Allah, how is this working? Why do we need your angels, but those guys who we're going to kill later don't? How is it that most of us get killed just before we win the battle, but those guys win without having any losses, but you didn't even bother to send them angels? So why do we need angels and not them? Why are we weaker than them? Then he explains that away by saying, I let them win because I'm going to punish them later, and if you don't like it or you have any doubts, that's a sin, but I'll forgive you of that sin as long as you worship me. And then the last thing he says is, Allah is forgiving of your sinful lives. For Muslims, he is the most merciful. So he's saying the guys over there who he's letting win, even though they didn't need the angels and they won without losing too many people, that's not merciful because they're going to lose big later. They're all going to get killed later by his Muslims. So even though you guys got slaughtered and required 8,000 angels to win your battles, and then you had doubts you weren't allowed to speak of, because you didn't speak of those doubts, you're going to get forgiven the sin of having them. And that means for Muslims, Allah is the most merciful. But for those guys not, even though they're still alive and they won their battle without his help. And he decided that was going to happen. He's helping them out without killing them. Look, I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I really hope you're following this, because this is how it's written. I can't, I'm trying the best I can to make sense of it for you, but I can't make more sense of it than this. That's the way it's written. Like I say, if you want the pig's ear for yourself, buy and read one of these. Anyway, so that brings us to our final verse, 130. When the greedy Satans do profit on you, or see not the grief I did set out for them, you must fear only Allah. They will devour not their profits, you will reward in double, nay triple what they shall lose. Allah will reward those who only fear him, and they will be the ones who live and prosper long. End of verse, end of reading. Oh, at last, a bit that makes sense. So even though this bit seems unrelated to his battle, victory and loss thing and the angels, I think what he's saying there is, when the greedy Satans do profit on you, or see not the grief I did set for them, what he's saying there, if we break it down, is the guys who you were killing a minute ago, who were beating you, who you needed 8,000 angels to stand up to, that's the greedy Satans. I think that's what he's trying to say here. The guys in the previous battle that you needed the angels to kill, that was greedy Satans. You eventually did kill them with the 8,000 angels, but for some reason they made some profit on that. So obviously that wasn't their whole army, and by fighting you, even though they had a defeat in that battle, they're winning some kind of larger war because they've profited off it. So what Allah is saying here is, even though those greedy Satans get some victories against you and they make profit, they're not going to see that profit. I'm setting grief for them because they don't fear me, says Allah in the book. They will devour not their profits. He's saying again, they made profit on this. That's expressly what Allah is saying here. Even though they supposedly lost this battle, these greedy Satans, who are the Jews, you will reward double, and they triple what they shall lose. So he's saying, even though they made profits, they won't get to see those profits, and they will lose those profits when you next see them, and then you'll get double, triple. That's expressly what this says. And then he finishes off by saying, Allah will reward those who only fear Allah, and they will be the ones who live and prosper long. So it's like, hang on a minute. Live long and prosper. Is that what you're telling me, Allah? Your guys are like the Vulcans, i.e., they're too smart for this losing the battle to win the war thing. So you're trying to... What it sounds like, Allah, is you're trying to teach your guys, if they lose a battle, it's good because eventually they're going to win the war. And that loss was part of the war being won for you. Even though half of them are getting killed and you're sending angels, other guys aren't needing that to get their victories. You are saying to me about your Muslims that even though they're the Jews are profiting off their deaths because you didn't help them enough and you planned for the other guy to win. In the end, this will be good because you'll get double, triple what the profit the Jews just got will be. And Allah will reward those who only fear Allah. So those guys won't get to keep the money they just made. I've got to admit, this page has been extremely difficult to get through. I think we're going to end it there because as much as the live long and prosper thing could have a whole discussion of its own, how that crept its way in there, I think the summary we need to take from this is that Allah is very concerned with his Muslims not having a fear in battle, despite that there's not many of them and their technology is not as good as their enemies. So Allah is saying, I'm going to send you 3,000 angels, I'm going to send you 8,000 angels, I'm going to make sure you win. Even if you don't win and the other guys win, is because my plan. So eventually that's the engineering of the plan, is for them to win now so that I can punish them later and you can beat them then. Even though you don't understand this, the mystery is above your simplicity and his method is far above your understanding. So Allah is saying, if you don't get any of this, O Muslims, or anyone else like us reading it, it's not because it doesn't make sense, it's because you're not worshipping enough, and you're stupid because you aren't reading the Quran enough. That's the only thing this could mean. So please, if anyone has any better understanding of this verse, please get in touch with me, leave me a comment, don't spam a load of rubbish comments, please just pick out a bit and talk about that in isolation. But as far as I can tell, this is Allah saying to his Muslims, you are going to be seeing some defeats, even though I prophesied you never would. Even when I send you 8,000 angels, you might still lose a load of guys. Even if you win, you still lose loads of guys. And this is all part of Allah's secret agent plan. You know, I see and all know thing. I know and I see all things, says Allah. So the defeats are part of the plan. The victories are part of the plan. You dying, O Muslims, is part of the plan. Them winning is part of the plan. And in the end, the greedy Satans are the ones who you're going to get the profit from. That's the last bit that's mentioned. So anyway, that's the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed that and you learnt something. God bless, and I will see you, lovely people, in the next one. Bye now. Oh, that was a right pig to get through, wasn't it? And that wasn't even my concussion. That was Allah's illiteracy. It's a 7-year-old level of reading comprehension at fault. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll see you back here at 7:15 tomorrow. In the meantime, God bless, have a lovely evening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.